Hey, what up? What up? What up? Welcome back to Ticking Gray Bomb, Refined Taste for Idiots. I'm Mex.
I am Mase.
Welcome back for another great episode that will no doubt grab your attention like a dog. Hopefully not choking.
Bang, bang, bang.
All day long.
Grab a dog.
What we want to chat about today is a fun little adventure we had in Manhattan about a couple weeks ago. We decided to go to Hudson Yards for some watch shopping, watch hunting. And, we want to share with you a couple of things that we saw, a couple of things that we liked, maybe a couple of things we didn't like so much. But I'd say, Mace, for the most part, it was a very positive visit. A couple of hours spent really just chatting with some people who like watches and who know a little bit about watches and trying on different stuff.
Yeah. And getting our hands on some tacos. So,
oh, no doubt, very expensive taco.
Yes, sir.
So Hudson Yards is a new development, kind of new retail or newish retail development on the west side of Manhattan, and we picked it because of its high number of or high concentration of watch shops, of luxury watch shops. So inside there, as part of our journey, we hit Watches of Switzerland, which was probably where we spent the most time and had the biggest bang for our buck, which was nothing, by the way. So excellent value. We hit Panerai Boutique. We skipped over the Piaget Boutique because they were obviously looking at some other luxury items like jewelry, heavily focused there. And then we went into Cartier and we wrapped our trip. So lots of different types of watches. I would say lots of real, I would say that our visit was characterized by, for the most part, a high, good interaction with folks who have a high watch IQ. And actually, I want to spend a special shout out before we kick off to, I hope I don't butcher her name, but Amanda Bermel at Watches of Switzerland. She entertained our fool's ass for a long time. I would say probably 40 minutes at least.
Yeah.
Right. Trying on all sorts of watches. Very, very impressed, not just by her patience, but by her knowledge. Right. I know Watches of Switzerland. I don't have a personal experience with Watches of Switzerland, so I can't leverage a buying experience, good or bad. I know it, in some cases they don't get a good rap, maybe in Europe or in the UK, but it's clear that Amanda's training was on multiple watch lines was very comprehensive, and she demonstrated that. And yeah, I'm actually happy to give her a little shout out here if anyone's watching this anywhere, if they come to New York, because she really knows what she's doing and she deserves repeat visits and new clients for sure.
I also want to say that we selected Watches of Switzerland because, if you recall from our wish list video, I had mentioned wanting to get my hands on the Doxa 300 and 300T, and they carry those, so that was kind of important for me as well.
So why don't we start there? That
Yeah.
was the reason why we went to Watches of Switzerland. We made a beeline to the Doxa display case. So yeah, why don't you take us through your experience there, Mace?
Yeah. So they had kind of the 300, 300T. They brought them out. They weren't necessarily on display. They kind of had them behind the coffee bar there.
Right.
Or I guess I should say bar. And I tried both on. I honestly couldn't say that I was pulled in either direction or one over the other. I think, if I recall correctly, the 300 probably have a better fit under the cuff because of the way that the crystal was. I think both fit nicely on my wrist. I think I was a little disappointed, maybe enough of a disappointment for me not to buy the watch that I proposed buying in the wish list, because the orange dial on the Doxa is definitely more matte and not as bright as I would have expected, seeing kind of hundreds of videos and hundreds of pictures on the internet. And so that left me kind of a bit disappointed or a bit wanting in kind of what I was expecting. And the orange on that dial reminded me of the Seiko diver that I had, the oh my God, the orange samurai.
Samurai.
Thank
Yeah.
you. The orange samurai that I had for a couple of reasons I actually sold that on. One was its considerable heft, and
The
two was
girth.
kind of the orange dial was not exactly what I wanted. It was a bit more faded or matte than I wanted, and this Doxa dial kind of was very much reminiscent of that. So that was um, a bit of a disappointment for me. So kind of left there. Geez, felt nice on the wrist. So maybe that leads me to purchasing a different dial color. Um, but maybe not considering I got a different watch in that style.
Yeah.
So
And so a couple of observations from my side, May. So I'd never seen a Doxa in person, but I was kind of turned off by the, it obviously has kind of like a turtle case. It kind of has a chunky old school dive case, but the dial was very small, right? It was almost like a porthole, and I didn't like that at all. From my standpoint, but I think the most important thing that we could share with our viewers, that this army of viewers who loyally stands by us episode after episode, is that it really, and again, we're spoiled because we're at the doorstep of New York City, which has just about every AD is here, every watch brand is represented, even into the suburbs of New York City. But it's really important to see a lot of these watches, right, in person, to put them on your wrist. We have such an internet culture, right? We have Chrono, where we think we're shopping for watches, we think we have a good feel watching videos and then looking at listings, but nothing really replaces getting hands-on watches, right, and trying them
no
on.
doubt about it. The other watch that I had mentioned in the wish list video was the Explorer 2. We met Amanda and she, encouraged me to put my name in the list for the Explorer 2 and said, maybe in, 10 or 11 months. And I know that I won't hold my breath for that call.
The one thing I do want to say, Mace, is that Amanda's tone, and again, it's not like we've talked to her over the last 3 years, but she did have a much softer tone and a much more, let's say, optimistic tone than I've heard from Rolex ADs over the last 3 years. Okay.
No, absolutely. And I think I left, maybe a little bit skeptical because of what we heard of the last couple of years or the different ADs we've been in, kind of like, so any sort of movement here? And they're like, not really.
Right. So, maybe this is, we could take a parenthetical note. I wasn't thinking about going here. But, I shared with you, Mace, the Rolex charts graphic, right, that which we pulled off of Instagram, watchcharts.com, which I find very informative. I don't know how the hell they get their data, right? I don't know what they're tracking, right? It's clear that so they have a Rolex market index, right? Obviously all sorts of indices today. But they track Rolex prices. Basically, it's a basket of 30 Rolex models based on transaction value. Okay, so I don't know what those 30 watch models are, but we can imagine, there's going to be the hype sports models, most of them in there. And prices have fallen 23% over the last year. Right. And we see that, Mace and I have been tracking the gray market, if you will, the secondary market for Rolexes. Clearly, prices have come down considerably on the hype models. We've shared that information with you over the last few months. So are we at a point? Could we say we're back to 2018, 2019 levels? No, I don't think we're quite there, but we're close. Okay. And the question is, what happens now, right? Because the Rolex guys are actually giving us much more hope than they did in the past that we could have our watch, our hands on a watch at list price let's say within the calendar year. So something we will continue to monitor for you guys.
We basically turned around.
Every now and then I get a little bit terrified. I see the
And we were facing the Grand Seiko case.
So, and this is, for me, obviously, there's tons of hype around Grand Seiko, right? Everyone's touting this as the best value, hands down in the watch market today. I feel like every time you put on YouTube, there's another fanboy video about Grand Seiko. So I think Mase and I both wanted to really get hands on a lot of models. And we tried on some sports models, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad we had, I'm glad we have these outlets like Watches of Switzerland. I'm glad Amanda was as patient as she was with us, because we tried on quite a few Grand Seikos. I didn't feel a connection to any of them, right? It's nice to observe, between the polishing, the very, high polish metal, as well as, some of the beautiful dials that they have, to work with the seasons, autumn and spring, etc. But, in many cases, they're time only watches. And I just, it's hard for me, at the stage of collecting that I'm in, it's hard for me to connect with those watches.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. While I appreciate the effort and the expertise that goes into crafting the Grand Seiko models, those dials are absolutely gorgeous. I don't think that they would carry my interest for a long period of time, to kind of be a permanent part of my collection. The one exception, and it is a tool watch, is the SBGM 221. It is a cream colored dial, and it has kind of the 24-hour indices for the GMT function. Had a leather strap. Of all of the kind of Grand Seikos, that was the one that would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that was the nicest one that we saw. The cream dial was really nice. Again, not those type of really fancy textured dials that we tend to look at immediately with the Grand Seikos, but really nice. And again, has a complication, right? Had a nice, from a legibility standpoint, GMT output. So yeah, I agree with you, Mase. I of all the Grand Seikos that we saw in the display case, and there were several, right? And there were clearly about, I would say easily 15.
Yep.
Maybe more than that. I would say that GMT, the cream dial GMT was the nicest one. It was quite nice.
Yep.
Do you remember the retail on that, Mase?
I believe it was sub 5,000. I want to say 46 or 4,900.
Yeah. No, again, when you look at value, that's a great pick.
Yeah, and I think there's room for negotiation.
There's probably room to negotiate, right? Grand Seikos, despite all the buzz and all the hype, Grand Seiko is still pumping out watches, and guys like Watches of Switzerland still needs to sell them. And again, if you're coming to Watches of Switzerland to buy Rolex, you're probably not going to get talked into a Grand Seiko.
Right.
So yeah, I would think, and this is just speculation on our part, but I would think that there are discounts to be had there.
I would say that one other thing that I wanted to get a feel for the Reverso versus the Santos, at least in my mind, was kind of a comparison I wanted to make. I put on the Reverso. I think it's a really cool watch. I don't think it's for me. My days of going to lots of weddings are well behind me, even work-wise. My last job, I wore a suit a decent amount of time. I don't know that the Reverso is for me. I think having a JLC in my collection would be cool. I just don't think it's going to be that one.
There you go. I agree with you 100%. I think JLC makes amazing watches. It's part of the Richemont brand, but it's certainly one of the more high-end Richemont brands, particularly from a watchmaking standpoint, right? We looked at a perpetual calendar. We looked at a couple of nice models, but yeah, nothing really stood out at me, Mason. They weren't really. I also remember most of them being dress watches.
Yeah.
None of them were on the sporty side, right? Yeah, for me, it was an unremarkable visit.
I think in kind of navigating the store, I think our next stop was Omega.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was our next stop, and then we spent some time there. So I had just purchased or just gotten possession of my Speedy Sapphire sandwich, right, which I was flexing. But that gave me opportunity to try on the Hesselite version, right, which has a different bracelet, which was interesting. So I was happy to do that. And so probably for me, the highlight of the Omega visit was with the Aquaterra, the World Timer, which is really, I mean, I think aesthetically, it's one of the nicest World Time displays on the market today. Now, I think the dig on this is that it's big, right? It's not only is it 43 mil, but the case is pretty thick because of the World Time movement. But it's a gorgeous watch. And so I think we tried it on with the metal bracelet and the rubber strap. So I think on the rubber, it's a reference 2201243, blah, 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 blah. These Omega reference numbers are gargantuan. But it's a really good looking watch. It's like I couldn't see myself. I mean, certainly I would not buy this watch new. I know that Del Rey Watch had a reference actually on sale because it stuck around for a little while.
I think he had two of them. I think that's the reason why he put one on sale, and I think he had them around 7,100, 7,200, which is a pretty healthy discount.
Yeah.
And I think Omega on the strap, right? That World Timer on the strap.
Right.
Omega makes some great straps. I have the one on the Seamaster 300M. Really comfortable, and I thought it was really nicely done. The blue matched the blue on the dial. Really sharp.
I agree. Yeah, and the combination, right, with the Omega deployant is also very nice, right? Super comfy. It's very elegant. I think it's very well done. And Omega, we've talked about this before. Omega is really good value, good bang for the buck, very available. I mean, again, it's like, yes, you see a million Speedmasters out there, you see a million Seamasters out there, but look, at the end of the day, it's a good entry-level luxury brand with not a lot of BS of the Rolex, right? Where is it available? Is it not available? Do I have to pay a premium? These are watches. They're great watches. They're good-looking watches. They're high-quality watches. So, yeah, I enjoyed the time we spent at the. I mean, even if it was 6 or 7 minutes that we spent at the Omega counter.
And I would say the rest of our time, and correct me if I'm wrong, the rest of our time at Watches of Switzerland, kind of bouncing around a few cases, right? We kind of bounced off of the Breitling one, the IWC, and the Zenith. Nothing in particular caught our eye. I think we both kind of agreed at the Zenith counters. Like, if you're going to get a Zenith, why not go vintage? I think the kind of older models have a lot more character than the more current models.
Yeah, I mean, from a buzz standpoint, I mean, certainly, the new Zenith Chrono, right, that's meant to kind of mimic the Daytona is getting a lot of buzz, but, that's not a cheap watch, right? And it's like, do you want to spend that money to get a fake, basically, kind of an homage Daytona? It's like, look, I get it. Incredible, to your point, Mase, about vintage, right? Incredible legacy, incredible pedigree around Zenith. Best in class chronograph movements, but it's like you don't have to sell yourself. And I think that's the issue with a lot of these mid-tier luxury brands is they don't know where to go. How do they attract eyeballs? Because there's so many brands in the space. And I think Zenith just took the easy way out and made this Daytona copy. And so they brought back some other models, some older kind of chronograph models, but again, it's like, I don't know. I don't feel that re-release necessarily, right? Yeah. Again, from personal experience, the sales reps seem to know their stuff. Yep. They seem to be well trained. So we had a good experience at Watches of Switzerland.
So we left there and went to Panerai, right?
Yep, which was, again, small, very quiet. At least there were a couple of other clients at Watches of Switzerland. I think we were the only clients or prospective clients at Panerai. But it's so interesting to walk into a Panerai only boutique, right? When essentially all the watches are the same. It's like, what do you got here, guys?
Yeah. Right? If you want to get into a Panerai, I think it's hard to make a selection. Even kind of with it. Okay, so you have basically two models to pick from, right? You've got your Luminor and the Radiomir, and they have the submersible, right? That's for the Luminor. and you have the Due, right? And the more, generally speaking, smaller watches
Correct.
with
Trying to increase their clientele, right? Either with women or with men who don't want a smaller wrist or don't want, a plate on their wrist.
right. And so what I think as someone who's interested in getting a Panerai, you're kind of paralyzed by a lot of sameness.
Yes, agreed.
Minor modifications from okay, this one's 44, this one's 45, this one's 47, this one has like a little blue seconds hand, or this one has yeah, so thing, and I think the reference numbers are a little bit tricky. I think I tried on a black ceramic one. I think I tried on another one. The reference number, I don't know, you pick it out of a bag. I don't know. And you tried on one. I didn't write the reference number down, but it was the Radiomir Elion.
Yep. I think they say Eileen.
Eileen.
Yeah, it's Pam.
You're Anne Eileen?
When I go down the street and see my Aunt Eileen.
Yeah, come on, Eileen.
Come on, Eileen.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Pam 1243. Maybe 1243X because it's a limited edition. This was the one, I mean, for me, it kind of caught my attention. I like, I have aluminum Marina that I wear from time to time. I've looked at some Radiomers before. I like the fact that they don't have, the kind of massive crown guard. So it's a bit of a different look with the case. I mean, the case is actually, it's more square, and it has kind of the freestanding, if you will, the kind of the crown, just the crown. And it had a interesting. So Eileen is what's the story around this? It's a yacht that I don't know if Panerai
shipwrecked.
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of weird story.
I think we got half a story,
Right.
and we weren't interested enough to go follow it up back at home, right?
Right. Correct.
It had a date on it, 1936. The dial, right, had kind of what you would think kind of the planking of
Right,
kind of
looks
a
like a
yacht
decking.
floor,
Right,
right?
correct,
Yeah. So
Correct.
yeah, it was kind of nice, and I thought the strap was pretty interesting. Kind of heavily.
Well, the strap it kind of looked like a cross between like a buffalo and like a knot,
Right.
like a nautical knot, right?
Yep.
That was the thing I liked about it the least, from my standpoint, right? But I've never seen this before, and I don't know. That's the other thing is I know it was a limited edition, but I don't know if it was a boutique limited edition. I think they only sold it in the boutiques.
Could be.
Yeah, sorry.
I found it on their website this morning.
Yeah.
But I didn't look to see if it had a buy now, button or not. I did see the MSRP. I think it was 8,100.
Right. And so, it's trading at a premium on Chrono. Okay. I mean, it's very, again, most of the models are above 9,500. So it's interesting, right? So clearly it's limited, and some folks are interested in this model. That was, for me, out of all the models that we saw that day, this was the one that had the most interest for me. But, in terms of, I would say, probability of purchase, I would say it's still low. It's probably around 30% for me.
Yeah. And I would say, as someone who's interested in getting a Panerai, this visit neither increased or decreased my likelihood of getting one, nor did it help me narrow down what I'd like from a Panerai. I think and I think that might be part of Panerai's issue, kind of connecting with consumers.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation, Mase, because it's like, again, and you said it earlier as well, right? I mean, it's like you're overwhelmed by the sameness, right? It's like, okay, well, and again, I get the submersible is a little bit different for me. I don't like it at all, right? It's easy to kind of cross that off my list. But again, as a Panerai owner, I'm done. It's like I feel like the box is checked. There's nothing else, that I really need in my collection, because you have it, right? In terms of 44 millimeter aluminum Marina, with the crown guard, with the small seconds. Okay, do I really need something with a date bubble? Do I want a manual movement over an automatic movement? That's kind of the choices that you're making. Right? Aesthetically, they're all the same, which maybe, to a certain extent, maybe that could help define the definition, refine your choices. But yeah, and if I were you, I'd kind of be not disappointed about the first piece, right? But definitely disappointed around, well, I would hope this would help me narrow, this would help me, being surrounded by the exclusive universe of choices in Panerai, this should help me narrow down my choices, and it didn't.
Then we left there and we went to Cartier. This, if you asked me 10 years ago, would I ever kind of consider a Cartier? I would say, no way. But I do have a small interest, maybe an increasing interest in getting a Cartier at some point. Of the models available, I think the Santos is one that I was interested in, and I think I made the obvious connection to the JLC Reverso, both more rectangular in shape, and tried on the Santos, I believe the large with the blue dial. I would say it
Which was
fit
the
well.
Wonders release, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't know this existed. It's a nice kind of limited edition type piece.
And I think they have two versions, right? They have one, it's hard to call it a bezel, but they have kind of that metal that kind of surrounds the dial with kind of rivets in it. They also have that in blue in one of their models. That's not the model that I was interested in. I was interested in more just a blue dial. Fit well. I could see that as something to get maybe down the line.
So a few observations about our visit to Cartier. So first, I did not anticipate that you had a Santos on your wish list or curiosity list. So that was a big reveal for me. So, and that's good because I think those are in some ways there's some of the nicest pieces, most masculine pieces that Cartier produces, right?
Yeah, and probably doesn't fit my physique or profile, but there is something I think about wearing a Cartier with jeans that are kind of a nice, dressing down the watch, and you could wear it kind of in any scenario. The Santos gives a little bit more heft, a little bit more presence on the wrist. I think also in terms of the boutique experience, right? Just stepping in the door, I think we had to give our name and number, to a security guard there, before they let us in, right? Maybe a name and phone number. Place was empty, right? I mean, and they were empty from a customer standpoint. 4 or 5 salespeople,
Yeah,
right? Maybe more dedicated to the jewelry space.
but the thing I really didn't like, and I think I shared this with you when we were there. I've had a similar experience at the boutique in Miami, in the Miami Design District. You have to wait to be assigned a sales rep. Right. And that's absurd, right? I think it's totally ridiculous, that approach, right? Now, maybe they will tell you, well, we want a very personalized experience, but we got shuttled off to the side where we waited for a couple minutes, right? And it just doesn't feel, especially in an empty boutique,
Right.
Something wasn't right for me there.
Yeah, I agree. I would say, but once we got assigned to a rep, she was pleasant and accommodating, but we were definitely standing by ourselves for, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not
It's totally empty.
For sure. I would say, let's say 3 to 5 minutes. We were there, and it was like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, we were kind of grumbling, right?
Right. How's this going to be?
Kidding me? Yeah.
Right. But and again, I have to say, so that would be my final observation, is that the person who helped us, right, the sales rep, was actually very nice and super bubbly and made it very comfortable for us. She wanted to engage us and she wanted to have a conversation. It's possible that she was bored to death, right, before we walked in. So she saw 2 guys, definitely a little older than she was, but probably friendly folks. And we had some good banter going back and forth for, I would say probably weren't there for more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. But that for me was a nice experience. I mean, it was clear she wanted to connect with us, and she knew we knew our watches. And I would say from that standpoint, that rescued the visit for me.
I guess final thoughts or questions kind of sum up, did you have any of your kind of opinions going in to the stores changed?
So, I went in with very low expectations, right? I'm not looking to buy a watch. I would say I'm not looking to buy any watch actively right now, but certainly not a watch that we would have seen, um, you know, in Hudson Yards. So I'd say, again, from an observation standpoint, um, it confirmed my my feeling towards Grand Seikos. Right. Again, I wasn't looking to validate anything for Doxa, but I could tell you that it was clear that that Doxa deal is off the table for me. But again, I think it just highlighted the importance. Certainly we've lost a lot of that. I would, on my travels, I would always stop in to watch boutiques. And we lost a lot of that during the pandemic. So it was good to kind of reconnect. And I really did find the same on the part of the sales reps, right? The account managers who were there. I think most of them really do appreciate the engagement from experienced watch lovers, right? So that's good. And again, I want to highlight, as I did earlier, just the value of going and trying on watches and interacting with these folks, because in many cases they do have good knowledge, and there's a lot to be gained from that knowledge. And from a personal experience, personal journey standpoint, you really only know if you're going to like a watch once you get it on your wrist.
Any opinions that I wanted to state, I did so already in the video. I don't think I have anything else in conclusion. But it was nice to get out, and I don't think that we've gotten together all that often over the last couple of years, just the two of us to have kind of lunch or whatever, without our families getting involved. So I think it was nice to kind of play hooky and go and do that.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess maybe in summation, what we could say is I'd like, the conversation was, how do we follow this up? I think, again, there are pockets in Manhattan where you can do this. So from next step that I would like to propose is that we go to, basically Fifth Avenue in the 50s and hit some boutiques, and then maybe we have a Wimpy to balance the Watches of Switzerland experience,
Yeah.
where Wimpy offers multi-brands, and then obviously around that area, 59th Street, Fifth Avenue type area, you have several kind of monobrand boutiques that we could hit as well, which I think would be valuable.
Yeah, that'd be great, obviously.
So with that, look, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know we ran on a bit, but again, it's always fun hunting watches. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it inspires you to go hunt some watches as well. So with that, we'll sign off. Bye-bye.